Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 21st meeting of the Bethany City Council. I'll call the meeting to order. Would you please stand for the invocation by Councilmember Holloway and then remain standing for the flag salute, please.
Please bow with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we approach you this evening humbly, Lord, and we just ask you to continue to watch over the city of Bethany, watch over each of our families. Lord, watch over our country and the men and women that are in harm's way to protect our freedoms, Lord. Be with their families, give them peace and comfort. Be with each one that has health issues, Lord. Give them the peace that goes beyond all understanding. Give each doctor, nurse, technician, each person involved in decisions made for them. Use each one as your good and perfect instrument. Lord, watch over us tonight as we make decisions for this great city of Bethany, that you've blessed us, that we live here. We just pray that we glorify you in all that we say and do and think. We pray these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Please face the flag. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. The first item on tonight's agenda is the consent docket items 1A through C. Do we have a motion on that consent docket, or does anything need to be pulled or addressed separately?
I'll make a motion to approve them all.
Okay. Motion for approval is on the consent docket as a whole. Do we have a second?
Second.
Please post your votes. All right. Item 2 is called to the public. If any member of the audience wishes to address the council, please step forward to the podium. First, state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Hearing or seeing none, I'll move on to item number 3, which is consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 1413, determining that a Scrivener's error in the preparation of the official statement dated May 17th, 2016, for the City of Bethany, Oklahoma General Obligation Bonds Series 2016 resulted in an error in the statement concerning par capita debt, as stated on page 14 of the official statement, which is hereby corrected. David?
Yes. On page 14 of that official statement, there are certain disclosures that are required to be given to prospective buyers of the bonds, and there was a mistake made, not in the amount of debt the city had, but one of the disclosures requires you to show the total per capita debt that each bondholder, or pardon me, each resident of Bethany has for all of the taxing entities. That includes the school districts, the Oklahoma County, and the VOTEX. And that was misstated. And the reason we're doing this resolution is on May the 17th, you approved that official statement. So this is just a record that you have corrected that document that was an error. It's sort of a technicality, but I believe it's necessary. And the motion would just be a motion to approve resolution 1413.
Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Okay. Is there any questions or discussion? Please post your votes. Item 4 is discussion, consideration, and possible approval of resolution number 1414, adopting the FY 2017 budget for the general fund, miscellaneous other funds, and various trusts, affirming the authority of the city manager to make transfers within the general fund and appropriating funds from the capital improvement fund for specified equipment and projects. Steve?
This is the time when we approve the budget for next year. Every member of the council's had input on the budget. Staff has spent a lot of time working on the budget. JR and I have had several meetings on the budget. We've discussed it 2 weeks ago in front of the public, and I would request that you pass the budget so that we can work on our next project.
Just for the record, since there's no collective bargaining agreement in place with either union, any salary proposals in there for those will be subject to reaching an agreement with the respective unions.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry, yes.
All right, do we have a motion for resolution number 1414?
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is there questions or discussion? Please post your votes. Item 5, consideration and possible approval of resolution number 1415 nominating John D. Schugert as the candidate to fill an open position on the Board of Trustees of the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund, representing District 6, for a 5-year term beginning October 1st, 2016 through October 1st, 2021.
I'd like to make a motion, we table this until we have a second and third, possibly fourth candidate ready to go that possibly is an employee of the city.
Can I respond?
Motion to table.
Okay, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do you want to make a comment, Steve?
Yeah, the deadline for this is June 30th. If we, and this is not, actually, this is not to put him on the board. This is simply to nominate him for, to run for the board. It's not necessarily to put him on the board. He would be, I know there's at least 2 others in this district that are running for the position. So this is not to put him on the board.
Well, one of my concerns is also, we're trying to hire a new city manager, and, well, there's several other reasons too, but they don't, a new person taking a new job at the helm may not want the ghost of their predecessor sitting on that board. Might be something to even discuss, like that. I just would like to have some other candidates available.
I don't think there's anyone in this state that knows as much about municipal finance, about retirement as John Schugert. I mean, it does not have to be an employee. I think John has served well on that board. He's well respected on that board. He was elected vice chairman, I think, right before he left, by his peers on that group. I don't know that there's much in the way of a better mind when it comes to keeping those funds sound than John. But we do have a motion to table on the floor. Please post your votes.
Sure is.
This is to table.
This is the
right?
table.
Table.
You got that, Susan? Let's see. Item 6, consideration and possible award of a bid for fire department windows and doors to Ron Moore Company, Inc. in the amount of $40,565. Did you have anything on that, Steve?
We have S.R. Hunter is here to discuss this. We have a bid with, the fire department has looked at this, and they've actually accepted the bid from Ron Moore. He was not the low bid, but I believe that S.R. questioned the Hill Glass, and after questioning him, the Hill Glass just actually broke down and told him, look, you just need to go with somebody else. He said, we just don't have the stuff to do it. And so he actually backed out of the bidding process. So I believe that the fire department would like to go with Ron Moore Glass, Ron Moore Company.
Okay, do we have a motion for approval on this item?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Chief is here.
I do have a question. And just because this has been in my history, but What was about it that they couldn't do?
Well, there was several things that kind of threw up some red flags. And in the further we got into the discussion, the less I just felt uncomfortable with him. So I asked him some tough questions, and he couldn't answer them, and he voluntarily rescinded his bid. And I think that's probably the best thing that could have happened. I don't think that he would have given us a good product. He came in low, and we questioned that, and just some of the answers to his questions, it was evident that he could not fulfill his obligation. And then I think he realized that with just a tiny bit of
Yeah, sometimes.
prodding. And I think we're fortunate that happened. A nice enough guy, you know, and I know little about the company. I do know that Ron Moore is a very reputable company. They have quality product. They have good after the installation service, and I've got no bad comments about the Ron Moore company. So that was the reasoning in making the decision.
Okay. That's great. I was just curious. Thank you.
Chief, would this be the final, will your firehouse be complete with this installation of windows from our recent remodel?
Yeah, we're 99.9% there. There may be some little loose
Oh,
ends.
tic
but-
tacs, but you know, you
Yes.
gotta, but this is basically the only thing we like from the,
Yes, sir. There's a very minimal punch list when we get this done. We'd
This-
like to put a screen around
That's good.
the generator so it's not so visible from the road. We've talked about moving the gas meter back so it's away from the road and not so intrusive. We've got some problems that are going to come up. We've got a problem with our concrete, both front and back, and it's a huge project. And at some point, we're going to have to address it, and it may be sooner than later. But right now, yes, as far as the structure, we're 99.9% there.
good. I'm glad to see that wrapping up the way it is.
Any other questions of staff or the chief?
As long as David's happy that it was withdrawn.
I haven't seen the withdrawal, but I believe the chief that he
Yeah.
did, so, yeah,
And
that's,
No, this was just a verbal. I didn't feel a need for a formal withdrawal. In fact, we talked on the phone. We met a couple of times, and he rescinded his, I just asked him point blank, do you want this job? You know, I'm getting some bad feelings about this. And he voluntarily said, I think you probably ought to get somebody else. And I said, are you sure that this is the decision you want to make? So that was our final conversation. And if I failed to get that.
I think he realized you knew what you were looking for and wanting, and when he figured he couldn't possibly sub something that was spec'd, it sounds like.
I feel very comfortable we made the right decision. I was very scared of this, entering into it. And again, we've been burnt more than once with a low bid. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the best bid. It's just, all it is a low bid. So sometimes that's not where we want to be. I would have preferred to have a few more estimates, but I think what we got is exactly what we spec'd. So, and Ron Moore is, like I said, a very reputable company. I have confidence that we're going to get exactly what we are asking for.
the minutes should reflect that the low bidder withdrew his bid.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. If there's no further questions or discussion, please post your votes. Item 7 is discussion and possible action to direct staff on changes to both water and sewer rates. Steve?
We have had several discussions about discussing the water rates. We know we have some situations we need to fix in reference to charging the rate that we set for last year's Oklahoma City water rate. Although what we set last year was very low in comparison to what we're actually paying for the water that we got from Oklahoma City. I have put together my suggestion on the rate increase for Bethany Water. It's in the packet. I tried to be this is a very difficult situation in Bethany where you have, you've got every side of the spectrum. You've got a circle of people and they're exact opposites all the way around. You have people that are conserving, you have people that are just watering, you have people that are on every side of the economic scale, and to try to fit all that together is certainly not an easy process. My suggestion is to raise the actual base rate, because that's what we actually use as the foundation for actually building our water infrastructure. And we raised that rate, and someone made a comment in one of our meetings about comparing us to the other wholesalers of water in the Oklahoma City area. Well, that's a pretty limited group, us and about one other group, and they're a pretty major player. And so when I actually downloaded from online, when I went online and downloaded their rates, and I included that in your packet, all of our rates are still lower than their rates. Even our base rate is lower than their rates. But this will allow us to remain competitive. And I know we don't necessarily need to be competitive with them, but we do need to maintain our infrastructure. We do need to be able to maintain wells. We need to look at producing more water. We were able to get information from the computer system. I know for a long time what we got, none of us could use. And Steve Caton was able to actually pull reports off of it that we were able to use. And what he determined was that if we were to eliminate all of the users over 20,000 gallons of water, and that's a lot of water, that we would never have to open the tap with Oklahoma City. We would never have to get water from them. We could maintain, well, obviously we have, basically in the summertime, we have about 400 users that exceed that 20,000 gallons. And, it comes down to, in the scales of people using water, you've got people that they don't water a lot, but they have families to take care of, so they're going to be on the lower end. And by the way, where I set the actual tiers at with 1,000 to 999, or 9,999 gallons, and then 10,000 to 19, and then above that is also the same as our competitor. You have the group that's just trying to raise a family or start a family, or those who are on fixed incomes and are on the lower scale, and their rates are going to go up minimally. You have those who are they're liking to use water. They're watering their grass. They're filling their pools, and their rates, they're going to go up a little bit more. And then for those who really consume a lot of water, they're going to pay for that water. And if we have to open the tap with Oklahoma City, I think the only fair way to do it is charge those who exceed the 20, and again, I'm throwing this out there, this is a suggestion. I think those who exceed the 20,000 gallon mark, they pay a surcharge, and the surcharge is, in order to take us up to what Oklahoma City charges, is a $6.50 1,000 gallon surcharge. That's what it takes to meet what Oklahoma City charges us. And the question was asked about, well, if we only open the tap for a day, then do we only charge the surcharge for a day? Well, that's not how it works. When we open the tap, it's because we've actually drained our tanks down to the point to where we open our tanks up, and we're gonna run those tanks for a week. And I included the list of what we, of how much water we used last year. And when we open those tanks, we're opening them up to get millions of gallons of water. It's not just a day's worth of water. And so the surcharge isn't just for a day, the surcharge is for millions of gallons of water. And again, for those people that are trying to conserve, they're gonna be basically unaffected by that. One of the largest users that we had was, and I'm not gonna say any names or anything, but was an apartment complex. And we can guess that the apartment complex was probably far from full. And the problem is that that apartment complex probably has leaks. It has old toilets that every time you flush them, it's the full-blown flush. They have the old-style shower heads, and basically it's cheaper to pay for our water than it is to maintain the equipment and buy what they need to fix their apartments. So why do they care? Why do they want to fix that? They don't have to. So in order for us to make it to where they have to fix it, they're going to have to pay a surcharge. This is my suggestion. So now I've said my part, it's time for your discussion.
With the exception of our resolution last summer to temporarily raise the rates, when was the last rate increase?
We had some kind of COLA that was built into something.
Yeah, there was
A couple years ago.
there was an automatic rate increase based on the cost of living that went away about, yeah.
Well, that was the sewer, says 2011, so same with the water?
The sewer system still has,
Sorry.
our tie-in through Bethany War Acres, they still have the 3% or the cost of living from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, which I calculate every year for them. That raise is still in effect every year, as far as I know. We did that this past winter, so we're talking about the water rates here. And the effect is that when we open that tap, from the very first gallon we buy from Oklahoma City, it's at the full bore rate. And we're selling it to mom and pop that are having a hard time affording 4,000 gallons. They simply can't afford to have their rates at the full bore rate. So this plan allows for them to be protected while those individuals and companies that want to continue using water and letting the city basically finance their non-maintenance, we're going to charge them for that benefit.
Councilmember Herron, on sewer rates, what JR is referring to is the authority's rate increases to us.
Not us.
Correct. We haven't done the same in return. We've eaten that increase since 2011. But the authority has increased it to the city and to War Acres by that amount every year.
I can assure you that John's 100% correct. I receive those phone calls constantly from both sides of that coin. The owners of those places and their customers, I would say, and they can't get them to change the flapper valve. The toilets run constantly, and they're exactly doing that. They are financing, doing zero maintenance, not some, just zero maintenance with our low rates. And it could easily, if we're getting charged $6 from Oklahoma City, we need to at least be at our cost.
No, we're getting paid $10. We're getting charged $10 from Oklahoma City.
Which is-
$6 is the difference.
Right. But I still think we ought to raise that more. Those that are, I mean, because what happens is the citizen that, I mean, if we said if nobody used above the 20, then, we wouldn't be in this situation at all. Well, obviously, we have some industrial or multifamily users that obviously use over that 20. I don't know if you guys broke that down, if each one of those was metered individually, what that would do. But I think the thing is, those that are that big of a tax and strain on the system and causing us to have to hook up with Oklahoma City and buy water is then causing those people that can't afford it to pay more. I think those that are causing the problem ought to pay even higher than that 6, is my opinion.
And I'm pretty sure that almost all of them are just one meter that we're talking about.
Yeah, those complexes are. Those individual people that live in the apartments aren't seeing that bill per se, other than just in their overall rent. Those are unfortunately metered where the complex is on 1 or 2 or 10 or whatever, but the complex themselves is taking care of it. Even if it's just one per building, it's still a ton of users coming out of 1 meter.
But until they have an incentive to correct their problem, they don't care.
And
They're
even
not gonna care.
Right, which would be a reason to go to their residents and say, we'd really like you to conserve water, either putting in lower flow shower heads, whatever it is. I think that becomes the issue and why the strain is so high. So going easy and just making up the difference, I think we ought to go a little higher and maybe even consider keeping that middle range lower or the lower usage down, making it up more on the excess of 20,000 gallons. That's my opinion.
But this also, not only does it affect the apartments who probably have issues like that, but this also affects the institutes in town.
It does.
The children's center in town, who are maintaining those also.
So if they're maintaining their water systems, then it won't affect them as much. because
Well, but I'm
it
sure
will be
the
a difference.
institutes are probably
It-
using
it-
over 20,000 gallons.
It
so-
will be a difference,
have to
but
be.
what I'm saying is they still maintain, so
Yeah.
they won't be spending as much as the ones that are wasting.
Steve, could you remind me again how much the city of Bethany pays Oklahoma City to be able to open those valves?
1040? It's, yeah.
No, just to, he's
Just-
saying just to have the tap.
just to have
it
the tap.
available.
It's what I call the insurance. What was that again?
$3,000 a month,
$3,000 a month.
just for the,
To be able to
maybe
open-
we have to go open the valve.
Yeah, an insurance policy.
Right, the ability to do so.
Okay.
Access fee, I think they call it.
Yeah. Well, you're flowing several hundred gallons a minute through there. I mean, it doesn't take long to hit, or was it several thousand? It's like three or 400 per tap, is that right? I mean, you hate to pay that. I mean, for years, we didn't have to open it, and you hate to pay that every month. But, if we were to have some problem or issue and have to shut down, I mean, we have to have that ability to continue to provide water. I mean, if nothing else, you need fire suppression. Even if people are ultra conserving, you still have to be able to have that.
Well, I think while we're in this discussion on water rates, it all boils down to the city of Bethany needs additional money for its water. And one of the problems that we have is, I think the deposits that we require people to put up for utilities is entirely too low. Because I saw last week that, or I saw pretty graphically, that a person owed us about $50 to, in a bill, and they stiffed us for it. And we're allowed, we put up a $40 deposit. And not only did they have a $50 water bill in their at City Hall that they didn't pay. They also unloaded a front yard full of junk that we had to send a grapple truck down and pick up. And we were not remunerated 1 cent for any part of this. And I think that we need to take a serious, hard look at the deposits that we're required to put up, because some of these bills can get to $1,000 or more, and they do not put do not put deposits up enough to cover those. And if they just walk away, they're thumbing their nose at us and say, hey, I may owe you $1,000, but if I come down here, it's gonna cost me $500 out of my pocket because my deposit is only $500. And I think we should write an ordinance and cover this particular thing, because it's dollars and cents in what we're talking about now in water consumption. But it's also dollars and cents that the city is out when these people walk away from us owing us money.
We can do it two different ways, good, and we can do the rates today, and we can do the deposits another time, or?
Well, I think so. We can do deposits another time. Give us an idea at a later date. Say
Well,
like
actually,
It's in here.
we have included in here actually, it was written by John in 2015, but the rates still, the deposits still make sense. $60 for a resident that owns their property, $80 for a renter, $100 for a commercial, and the last one, actually, David will have to help us with. I just wonder if you cannot make the owner of the property responsible for the water bill and then make the owner charge the tenant the bill. Can we not do that, David? Can we not make the owner responsible for it? And I don't care if the tenant pays the owner or not. That's not our problem. Our problem is the owner of the property needs to pay us for the water bill.
Yeah, because then the next tenant comes in, wants water turned on, it's still owed at that address,
Yeah.
but it's a new person.
Right,
Or in
then-
theory, it's a new person, may just be
Right.
somebody trying to.
And we have
War
that.
War
pull the
Acres
orchestra
has
together.
tried several variations of that with not a lot of success. I think the answer, and John and I have talked about this in the past, there was some legislation that passed this last year that might help us a little bit on some of that. But my suggestion is just get the deposits up to where they're going to cover you. If that's 60 is not enough, make it 160. Whatever it needs to be.
Can you do it on a sliding scale, David, where maybe you take the average of what that property has been over the
That's what-
prior 12 months? Is
That's
that
what
possible?
OG&E does. They go back 2 years
Because I think,
on usage, and that's your deposit.
a flat deposit on a lower deposit on a smaller home that probably isn't going to, be using a lot, obviously doesn't have a big yard, not going to be watering a ton, may be something different than, somebody that's on an acre that's going to be watering the heck out of their yard. You could be talking two total different things, and yet everybody's paying the same deposit. It almost seems like to me it may make sense to look at that and do it on a sliding scale, just like OG&E does.
That's what gas and electric both do. And that makes sense to me. John and I can work that out if that's what you
It'd
want
be
to do.
Yeah.
based on like a historic consumption or some period of consumption of whatever we want
That
that
might
to be.
Whether it's 12 months or
effectively
24.
solve the problem that we're talking here with the landlord versus if we're taking a 2-year average, that's going to include the $900 that somebody stiffed us. And that happens. Okay? We've got people that are on Social Security having a hard time paying their $50 water bill, and we're being stiffed by people that owe us $900. Okay? So that might very well be a great way to approach that.
Do we notify them or contact them about options that they might have for assistance?
Yes. Yes, we do. We do, we've always offered a payment assistance. If you can't make your full payment now, when can you make it? We'll, as long as you're upfront and doing your part, what you promised, then we will go ahead and ride you or let it work.
Because there's agencies out there that will
We have an
assist,
agency
that will
hired.
assist, but they have to apply for it every month.
There are some of those that we receive payments through.
Those kinds of situations might be more inclined to reap the benefit of an average bill rather than a month-to-month bill. So over the course of the year, it would be the same, and they would know how and what to expect.
We had a real unfortunate situation just 2 months ago where an agency was making those payments. There was a significant water line leak in the rental home. And it took a lot of effort to get the landlord out there to fix that leak. Then the city is looking at, okay, we've got several $100s here that, who's gonna pay that? And that's a tough,
Well,
tough job.
I think a scale based off that average probably would be better. I mean, trying to set that rate high enough to catch the ones that we're having issue with, I mean, is going to affect a lot of people that really shouldn't necessarily have to pay that high of a deposit. And again, you'd be paying what would probably be a pretty high deposit on properties that those people would probably never run a bill very large. I mean, and I don't think there's any perfect solution. There's no way for us to determine, well, this person's going to be one that skips out, we need more in a deposit versus this next person. I mean, that's just.
Is this something that we would be willing to, say, 2 years, like Oklahoma City, after 2 years, they send you your deposit back? I mean, you get your
I
old.
think
Well,
this-
actually, they don't
this
send
is
it
a
back.
reasonable-
They
Apply.
cover.
Give you a bill credit
they
or
cover your
something.
bill, yeah.
So, and I would be completely fine with that. If you've had a history of 2 years of paying your bill, I don't think you're going to pay it every month and then just all of a sudden skip out. I
Right.
mean, the odds of that are probably pretty low. Most people that I'm sure skip out and leave us, it's, if you look back at their history, they're either late every month or don't pay occasionally or short pay or whatever it is.
When we see somebody that has been paying like a clock for 40 years and all of a sudden it's not there, that's when we call not customer service, but we ask the services people to go out there and check on them.
Right.
Because 9 times out of 10, there's a problem that from a humanitarian standpoint, we need to address.
But I don't have a problem with giving that deposit back or giving them a bill credit for that at whatever that determination of period of time is. It's 2 years or, whatever. But, I mean, I think the whole point of the deposit is to try to cover those that are skipping out on bills. Doing that on a sliding scale may help us better.
But our water bills are not the only thing that comes into the city utilities.
Well, it's water and sewer.
It's whether if you
And
use only
sanitation.
2,000 gallons or 1,000 gallons of water and have trash service and you have sewer service, you're up to $40 very quickly. You're there. Now, we're going to go to $60. And they just say, forget a bill, and then by the time we can get out and find out what's going on, they're up to owing us another $40 for that, and we've already lost $20.
Well, but I would think you could set that, you could average it over 2 years and then take a month and a half's average if you wanted. So you're covering a month and a half, and that would cover exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, the way our billing system works, the last time John and I talked, we were talking about 2 months service. And
Bear in mind,
since this is just a discussion item tonight, we can bring back specifics for you, but my thought is on it that it be based on average consumption for the last 2 years and 2 months worth of that. and that'd be water, sewer, and sanitation.
Well,
And-
there's more to it than that, because we're also providing free EMS and a lot of other stormwater services and a lot of other costs they're going to get, even if we've cut their water off. We're still out money. that
Well,
other
and that's why I
citizens
think you
are
take the
having to pay.
total bill and average it and take
Right.
2 months, and hopefully that comes a lot closer to
I agree.
making us whole and cutting that number way down. We're not gonna solve it. We're still gonna have people walk off from us, and some of those are gonna stick us with more than we got in their deposit. But I think this would be a huge step in getting us closer to where we need to be, and then we can tweak it from there if we realize that this still just isn't quite
Well,
doing it.
And by doing it the OG&E way, that puts the landlord, they've got a stake in that game then too, because if their tenant is gonna have to pay a higher deposit, guess what? Their tenants are gonna say, hey, what's up with this?
Yeah.
We can go, so they have a stake in the game to rent to better people.
Well, I can tell you what I do for rentals is I make them every 6 months send me a statement that their water bill has been paid and their electric bill has been paid. So I can tell if they're paying their utility bills. Because I'm concerned about the same thing that everybody here is the landlord should have some sort of a liability in renting to people that come up and rent from him, knowing full well that we're gonna get stiffed.
I think their argument's gonna be that they have no control over the consumption. And, they would have, if we were gonna make the landlord, property owner, be responsible for the utility, then,
What if-
But they do.
they'd have to make.
But they do somewhat overconsumption, because just like Councilmember Moore mentioned, you've got these groups that, are refusing to change flappers or whatever it is on leaking toilets, faucets, whatever it is, because they don't care, that you're paying the bill anyway. So, they somewhat, because I think some of these big offenders, that truly is the issue. It's not that the tenants are consuming that much water, especially in an apartment complex. That's
Well, that's-
100%
yeah, I'm thinking
domestic
about- I'm
use.
thinking about a house
Like
or a
in
duplex.
interior.
It will help with the issue that we have with some of the landlords that don't take care of the property.
Yes, but we should consider, but how do we work the turning back on of the water when they re-rent this piece of property after they've moved out of it and stiffed us for $50 or $60? Is there any way that we can guard against that?
Well, like I say, War Acres tried this, and it ended up being an administrative nightmare for them because, number one, you're going to have to give notice to the landlord before you're going to hold them responsible for it. You're going to have to give them notice before you turn it off. Then if the landlord doesn't pay, you're going to have to sue him in court to get the money from him. And it was their experience that it just didn't work.
We have a thing called a lock and a key. And we can lock on any water meter up in Bethany we want to lock up.
Can you?
There are some other issues here that I don't want to discuss in the open, because that would be divulging some information that would not be better. It would be best.
The problem is that a landlord is not necessarily responsible for the tenant's debts. And I don't know that you as a city have the right to force someone else to be liable for someone else's debts, which is what you're doing. You're making them a surety for their debts without their consent. That's part of the legal argument that's made against that kind of procedure. I think the answer is what you've come up with
Us 9
is to
folks
make
up here
the,
that are a bunch of pansies then.
your what are?
Us 9 folks up here are a bunch of pansies.
How's that?
Well, they can do it to us, but we can't do anything to them to get our money.
Well, that's the idea of the new deposit, I think, is that that's going to virtually eliminate the skip outs we're talking about. And the reason we have those is because of the way we bill. By the time we give them the cutoff notice, their bill probably already exceeds their deposit. That's the problem. So if we do this new deposit, I think that's going to cover 90% of the cases.
When do they get cutoff notices?
They get their cutoff notice 10 days after their next billing cycle. And actually, at the point you receive your bill, it's due. And I know the bill says due on.
You need to get up there. I'm sorry, or move the mic down to you.
I realize the bill says it's past due on a certain date, 20 days after you receive it, but the reality is it's due the day you receive it. Okay? You've already incurred that debt to the city. The city has already gone out and checked your meter and determined how much water you've used and calculated what that balance is. So the day you receive that bill is pretty much the day we printed it and processed it, and that's when it's actually due. We give you 20 days to pay that bill because nobody is superhuman. We can't just turn right around and they've got other things to do in their lives. But the 21st day, a lot of people say, well, it's this grace. And then they want another 20 days and another 20 days. And before too long,
You've used another 60 days of water in that
well,
period
they've
of time.
got 60 days of water. I promise you, we don't, there's not very many people ever been cut off for $50. Now, the cutoff problem is much more, it's a much larger problem than 50.
Yes.
It is.
Like, what's the average
Is-
cutoff problem?
I'm sorry, I don't have an average, but it's nothing at all to see somebody that owes 160, 250. I've seen them as high as $900, and I've worked with them and said, look, let's get a payment plan, let's get this money in.
Those people at 50 are going to get a cutoff notice if they haven't paid their bill. But I think what JR is saying is not, I mean, we don't typically just go out there on that exact day that the cutoff notice is and go cranking, water meters shut and
Yeah.
locking people out. Unless that $50 bill is the 10th time that we've had an issue or, whatever it is. But, I mean, we generally work with people that, are having trouble with a bill.
Your people have been doing this, I think the minimum time is 10 years? They know the customers out there, so.
Is there a way that, not necessarily with existing customers, but as new ones come in, that we can transcend to a mandatory automatic deposit or automatic payment? If that's something we could do.
Don't never work with people's pay periods, ever.
You talking about doing like an automatic
Yeah.
ACH or something?
Yeah.
Approximately 50% of our customers do pay over the ACH.
I mean, the only problem is if somebody's having trouble paying, we're just going to get a bounce back on the ACH.
Yeah, we
And
don't,
everybody doesn't have a bank account either, or a credit card.
that's true.
One point that needs to be made, everybody who doesn't pay their bills is not a deadbeat. There's some of these people
Extenuating circumstances.
who have genuine hardships, and I can tell you, staff tries to
Health
work
problem.
with those people on a regular basis, but in reality, if someone gets a cutoff notice, their bill is likely going to exceed the current deposit, because they've got, probably by the time the meter's shut down, they've got 2 months' bills,
Right.
and that deposit's not going to cover it. So this is probably delayed in coming. It probably should have been done some time ago, but, the deposit does need to be increased, and I think that's going to fix your problem.
So do you think the 60? So do you think this rate that's on here is this?
No, I think the answer is do a 2-month average of the utility bills over the last 2 years and have that be the deposit, but no less than $60. That's my
I think
recommendation.
we can certainly do that because we have a record going back years on every residence. Whoever's lived in that residence, we know, and we know what the bills have been and the usages have been, so.
And council members, I mean, staff didn't necessarily intend that tonight we make a hard, fast decision on this. It's set up that we could, if we needed to, direct staff to make changes, but I know Steve said he was good with just having some good discussion, getting some more info out to the council so that we can make a good, sound decision on what we're doing and not rush to a decision, just trying to come up with a number or something tonight.
I think we've heard enough questions that we need to get more information about the actual bills that are out there, get some
Yeah.
averages, some average past dues and stuff like that, and we can certainly provide more information at the next meeting. I do have a couple of quick things that I want to bring to your attention to give you time to think about. We have an issue where we have customers who will get a big bill. And the first thing seems like they want to do is blame it on the meter. It's the meter. There's no way I use that much water. There's no way I use 40,000 gallons. Blame it on the meter. Well, I'm sorry, but the meter doesn't break, okay? There's nothing wrong with the meter. We take the meters out all the time and send them, get them checked. The meter is always fine. In the 8 years that I've been here, I've never heard of a single meter that was less than 1% off of what it was supposed to be. The problem is it's just an excuse. You don't want to fight people, so you do it. Well, I propose that Oklahoma City charges $50. If you want to change your meter, it's a household meter or a regular meter, $50 to change the meter. If the meter proves to be a problem, the city covers the meter and adjusts the bill. If it proves to be there's nothing wrong with the meter, you charge them additional $50 on their bill. Do what?
Are you gonna do
I think
that
that
if
sounds
they have
fair.
an excessive bill, but if they're, like in our case, where we didn't get charged for any water because the meter was.
Well, there's no
Oh,
way
I
to
wanna be
figure
sure
that.
you're not
Bill.
gonna- you're
No,
not
there's
gonna
no way to
charge.
figure that.
Okay.
On the other side, though, there are some who have very large meters. Those meters require a lot of work to pull them out of the ground, and I've been told those can actually range from $500 to $800 to pull them and put in a new meter.
They can't be tested in the hole.
No.
Okay.
My
You
suggestion
have to
is
be able to
that
meter
on
what's
those
going through.
cases where we're talking about a big meter like that if we agree to pull the meter, we'll pull it, and we'll have it tested, we'll put in the new meter, and if we find that meter is bad, then we will cover the cost and we'll adjust the bill. If we find out that the meter is good, and then we will, same deal. They pay for all of the work, they get the bill, it all goes on their bill. And I'm just suggesting that, something to think about. Also, another problem we have, and I'm sorry, I've run across this several times, and as the acting city manager, I don't like it. People who believe that the bill is incorrect and want to split it with the city. Well, I'm sorry, I have done this, I've only done it since March, but I've already developed the thick skin and the cold hide, and I don't believe that the citizens of Bethany should pay for other people's water mistakes or whatever. I am suggesting that somehow we come up with a city council committee or make some kind of committee out of council members, employees, and citizens or something to where when these people have these problems, they submit the problem to these committees and let the committee decide once a month whether or not to write off part of the bill, all of the bill, or whatever it is, because I have gotten to the point to where I just won't do any of it anymore. I refuse to write anything off. And I just,
Here's my point on that is when someone calls in, they had a leak and they want something written off. If you go on vacation and leave your air conditioner on, OG&E has never, ever discounted your electric bill because you left your air
We
conditioner
understand.
on
yeah,
or lights on.
That's,
So
you're
you got a
exactly
leak,
correct.
why is it our problem?
Well, and it's, oftentimes it's not a leak. It's you left the garden hose on overnight
that
and you
could-
watered your yard for 24 hours,
People
or,
have no idea what that flapper
It goes to a
valve.
most of it is a malfunctioning piece of equipment.
Yeah, the flapper valve pops open, it's running straight into the toilet, straight through the sewer. They have no idea how much water that
It'll flow a
will
lot.
waste.
It's 4 gallons a minute.
Yeah, and so, I don't think that, as a future citizen of Bethany, I don't feel that that's my responsibility to cover somebody else's mistake. And so I automatically say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. But if the council believes we should look at that, then I think we need to have a committee or something that does that.
My thought is that rather than create a committee to do that, which I would think would encourage people to come down here and force you guys to make a tough decision, I would say, just leave it the way it is. If they come in and complain to the city manager, he can tell them they can place an item on the agenda and talk to the city council about it.
I agree with that.
Because
I like that
if
better.
you create the process, you're going, you might have 3 or 4 people a month here wanting to talk to you an hour about
Oh, I think it
their
probably
water
more.
bill.
I can tell you from the calls I got when we were having to charge more from Oklahoma City. And I spent hours on the phone and talking to the people I remember one specifically I talked to 3 times, and ultimately, we had a leak under the foundation. But it took me probably 6 or 7 hours of conversation to get them to get that checked. I think if the citizen has I'm not saying that we as council members need to do that, but I think that we as council members need to at least be a sounding board when your citizens call you. And if they are not getting the answers that they want from the city, then I feel a responsibility to make a phone call and find out what the facts are as best as I can, and then go back to the citizen. I think that we owe them that. If I called up here and I couldn't get the answers that I thought I needed because they're already overtaxed on time, especially like right now with the July 4th and the other things that are going on, I don't know. Is that out of our realm of our job duty, David, or JR?
Well, I just don't think it's necessary. Due process of law requires that we have language on our bill that says if you believe there's an error in your bill, you have a right to seek adjustment from the city, and you may call I don't remember whether it says city clerk or city manager. But anyway, that language is on the bill, and that has to be on there. Otherwise, you can't cut people's water off.
That's right.
And, to me, when that person comes, there needs to be someone here at City Hall that has the authority to sit down with these people and determine if there was an error made in their bill. And if there was, that person needs to have the authority to adjust it. And that's John or Steve, one at this point.
I can
So that's
promise you-
required by law, but to set up a separate entity to hear those things, I just think you're creating another level of bureaucracy that's probably not necessary.
I can promise you guys this, that I get those calls frequently, and I will go out and I'll call the front desk and say, have the boys meet me at such and such address, we're gonna read this meter. And the guy will come out and said, they've never read that meter, it's full of dirt, it's always full of dirt, they've never read that meter. And I can show you one place over here where you can see there's 6 different strands, or where they have thrown the meter, or the dirt that was in the meter over the past year. Okay? Those, I've not once caught the guys when they didn't read the meter. Not once did I ever say, where'd you
And
come up with that
frequently,
number?"
when they go out there, they see that little red hand spinning around real fast.
and you ask them, is there
And
any
that
water
tells
on
them-
inside? No.
That tells them
And-
that there's a leak.
Yeah, there is.
And I was really shocked to find this out, but Mr. Caton here can tell you how much water can run through a 1-inch line in 1 hour's time, and it is unbelievable. And there are really great, well-meaning citizens will call me and say, there's no way in the world I use X number of thousands of gallons. I can just assure them that it went through the city's meter to your side. I cannot tell you what you did with it or what happened to it on your side because I'm not an engineer. But we work with them all that we can. And sometimes it just simply comes down to that point. You've got a tremendous bill, and I'm sorry. I can't give you credit. I'm not authorized to write off that kind of money.
But the point being, we have a process in place right now that people advise that they could come in and dispute their bill, and that the person they talk to has the ability to adjust it if there's a mistake.
Mhm.
But if there's not a mistake, he's not going to adjust it. And anything any of our staff does, anyone would have a right to come to council and appeal that decision. Just like when the city manager decides whether to tear a house down. All those people are advised, they have a right to come before you and say the city manager was wrong and I don't want to, and you get to make the decision then.
Well, and I think I will add.
I think.
I would just encourage them to do just that.
Yes.
If they feel that they want to pursue that further, they're welcome to show up on the first or third Tuesday, and, or they can
I'll
get
have
with
Ms. Hawkins.
Steve's office and put an item on the agenda to be heard.
Do what now, John?
I'm giving you a hard time, Steve. But yeah,
That makes more
That's not-
sense to me.
I agree.
because I don't want, there's no use in having a belligerent attitude. The purpose here is provide the service and get paid for it.
Absolutely.
It'd be
And-
good though if we did Steve's idea first though and changed out the meter and found out, because that's what they're gonna say, the meter's bad. We did Steve's
We-
idea first.
I change out meters constantly, probably 5 to 10 a month. That would not be an unusual number. We have always absorbed the cost. Bethany has always absorbed the cost for all of that. We've never been like Oklahoma City and charged the customer for any of that. And we've not once had a meter come back and tell us that we overcharged. Normally, it's spot on, but there've been a few times when the customer made a mistake because they were getting a deal. A meter that's old.
They had us pull a meter
will
that wasn't
always-
registering.
An old meter will always underbill.
Well, I'm just saying, if people show up to city council without testing the meter, that's gonna be the argument we're gonna have. It's gonna be, what's your meter? Well, no, it's your usage.
But then we go to what Steve was saying. We'll replace that meter and test it, and if it comes back, and we use an independent lab, we don't test it ourselves. We use an independent lab to test those.
That's what I'm saying, we ought to do that first, I would think,
Frequently, we do.
before they come here.
Well, but we know,
And we should charge them, yeah.
I started testing every meter we pulled 6 years ago, and so far we've had exactly 0 read high.
I know, I'm just saying, there's no, for them to come here and have that catch-22 argument.
And Mr. Harsman's $50 flat fee for residential, if it's not bad, would take care of that.
Absolutely.
That way we could test it and get reimbursed for the call.
Do we
It
need
still
to
would-
charge more for the commercials?
Yes,
Yeah, commercial.
1,000. Something like that.
what does the 50 cover, Steve? How much does it cost us to test a meter?
Right now, Oklahoma City will actually do the test for free, but we
Oh.
still have to send a 2-man crew out to pull the meter, put a new one in. A new meter costs $38.50, so just the new meter's $38.50. The labor to pull the meter and then take it to Oklahoma City at 15th and Portland, wait for them to do the test, go get the results when they're done. $50 won't even come close to
Well, I was
covering
gonna
the
say 50
labor.
doesn't sound like
No.
I mean, if the meter itself is 38, we're not coming close to the,
We're not even covering our costs, but it's the same as what Oklahoma City charges, so, that's.
I don't think
Probably.
anybody's ever said here in this conversation that that meter does not belong to the city of Bethany. It belongs to the person who is using that, because you pay for that meter when you come and buy it from the city.
That might be a legal issue, I don't know.
I thought you paid for the meter can, but I didn't know you paid for the meter.
They pay a fee of $38.50, which is to cover the cost of the meter. I don't know legally if that means they own it or if they're just paying
They
the
own it.
cost of buying it. I don't.
Never had that come up. I don't think there's much pride of ownership in them.
Well, if they own the meter, then we ought to make them pull it, and they can pay for whatever they want to do if it's their meter.
Oklahoma City will test it for free.
There you go.
Hey, it costs us labor, and labor is something that is very expensive in our budget.
I'd rather say we own it. I don't want people messing with our meters, or the meters. Right.
So
And
where
one-
do we need to go from here?
If we can't,
Well, I think staff's going to continue to bring us some more data to get us hopefully where we need to be numbers-wise to button that down, probably the first meeting in July, I would imagine. So
Yeah,
two weeks to get some more data, give us a chance to further review that before we make a decision on exactly where we want to be on both sewer rates, water rates, these meter charges, our deposits.
Okay, one question I do have, in initially when we were discussing this, there seemed to be a little challenge with getting the information that we needed collectively to get the figures that you need to figure an increase. Is the software that we have, that we're using, going to give us all the information that we need?
Yes, now that we know how to ask the question.
Okay,
We were asking the wrong question.
all right.
Here's
Make sure
what-
we have that covered.
Yes, we're good.
Here's what you're going to be dealing with. That ordinance we had last year that imposed the surcharge, that will be amended, and there will be to provide that that'll only happen when we exceed the capacity of our well field, and then the rates will be set forth in a resolution, and that resolution will need to be published, and we need to do that pretty fast if you want it effective August 1, because that resolution has to publish 15 days before the rates become effective. So I think if Steve can get out the information to you, I can put the paperwork together for, maybe even for your next meeting if you want to, which would be pretty timely, I think.
Just as we start a
But
new
what
budget
I'll
year.
do will include the rates that Steve proposed and the language we've talked about on deposits, meter change outs, and the surcharge.
Right? Sounds
Are we good, are we good with the rates that were proposed?
I think so. You want to talk a little bit, you have in here also about the sewer rate changes.
Yeah, we just,
Talked about that.
we just calculated what the CPI was for the period of time since we quit the automatic increase since 2011, which is the last time we had an increase, which worked out to 7%. So it just, to me, the easiest way to do it is increase it 2% every 6 months to
I'd-
catch it up.
I would rather see us do, just do that yearly and either do like 3% or something.
Okay.
Rather than changing it every 6 months. I'd rather that increase just come once a year on our
Do a
proposal to do
3%
that.
For 2 years, and then we'll be at 6%, and then.
We can review it at that
review it
point.
then? Okay.
I mean, that's personally my opinion. I mean, whatever the council wills on that, but I'd rather see it a little less often, touch more than you were going to do every 6 months, but not quite as much as it was for the year. All right, items 8 and 9, did you want to take those together or separately?
Together will be
Okay.
fine.
All right, so items 8 and 9 are consideration and possible approval of the FY 2017 collective bargaining agreement between the City of Bethany and FOP Lodge 161 and IAFF Local 2085. Mr. Harsman said he didn't see the need for an executive session. I'll let him go ahead and talk about what he had, and then if the council chooses to further discuss that, we could always go into executive session then.
I think we've pretty much got everything worked out. We're still working on one particular clause of the drug policy, and basically that one clause, we want it to be perfect. It's something we've never dealt with before, and we just, we're honestly, we're not in a great big hurry. We can do an MOU. We've all agreed to an MOU. And so we'll just carry it forward, and July 1st comes along, we'll do the MOU, we'll be good, and we'll we'll just make it right. And so there's no reason to rush into this, no reason to make a mistake. And so if that's all right with y'all, we'll just carry it forward.
Tell them what an MOU is.
I'm sorry, a memo of understanding. We'll just agree to carry the current contract forward, and then when we reach an agreement, we'll take care of it then.
And this just has to do with getting some language nailed down.
Right,
That
we
we
just
want to make
want-
sure we have right.
Right, we just want to get the language right, and basically, I've to simplify things, because this is so new to us, I wanted to add a procedure, basically as an appendix, to just be kind of like a step-by-step deal for everybody. And in order to do that, I wanted the medical side of it, I wanted them to check it and make sure this is exactly the way we do it. And I have not heard from them yet, and that's kind of what I'm waiting on. I actually sent the contract, or the procedure, or the policy to David today to check, and we're actually waiting on the procedure from the medical side, so.
So the holdup is all on the city's side, it's not on
Yeah,
the
it's
union's.
us, not them.
Steve and I have been working on this, 2 years?
Yeah, exactly, well, yeah, at least that long, so there's no need to screw this up and make somebody mad when we don't have to. So,
Is that clear as mud for everyone?
yep, there we go.
Are there any questions on that, or does anybody have a burning desire to speak in executive session? If not, I'll move on to item 10, which is the city attorney's report. David?
All my items are on the agenda.
All right, item 11 is the city manager's report. Steve?
I have a couple of things. First of all, this is the last meeting before the 4th of July. For those people who use Eldon Line Park, we're going to be doing a lot of work out there, getting ready for the 4th of July. Please just remember that it's very hot out there. We have several employees out there that are working out there when it's very hot, mowing and getting this ready, and just, just be patient with them. Also, there is information available on the website about the 4th of July. Speaking of the website, we're actually next Wednesday, some employees are meeting with the website people to actually get our first view of what it's going to look like. We're very excited about that. We'll actually start going live in July, and we're very excited about that. We're actually going to have a usable, workable, shiny new website. So, very excited. And JR has a financial report that he thought I was going to get him out of tonight.
I was hoping you were going to talk longer. Good evening. On the financial side of things, the general fund and fiscal year-to-date revenues have been $7,479,000. Revenues for the same period last year were $7,333,000, so we're up a little over last year. And as compared to our budget, again, I'm not that great, but right now we're off budget by $2,179. And believe me, I'm not cooking the books. That's what the number came out of the machine. So year-to-date expenditures have been $8,262,100. That amount is under our $9,558,000 budget by $1.296 million, or 13.56%. And our net transfers increased the general fund by $705,000 to $3,466,000, which is pretty much what we carry from one year to the next. So basically, I've done all the transfers for the year and got the general fund in line with where we're going to start out next year. The Public Works Authority through May 31st, their revenues have been $7,220,000. That's about $75,000 less than what we had budgeted. But their net operating expenses were $5,034,918, and their fund balance after transfers is $22,396,000. Capital Improvement Authority, the revenues and transfers through May 31st were $361,969. Expenditures through the month totaled $1,445,000. Donations to the Blue Goose are still there at $3,950, and the fund balance at the end of the month was $933,661. And keep in mind, the vast bulk of that $1.4 million was, of course, a couple of fire trucks. So they're bought and paid for. That concludes my report.
Thank you, JR. I appreciate it. I have one thing left to say. The next time we meet, I will be a full-fledged Bethany resident. My wife and I are very excited about it, so thank you very much. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Item 12 is council members' announcements, comments, and proposals. Councilmember Holloway, looks like we'll start with you tonight.
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Moore?
I just want to offer my condolences to the Wallace family, many, many decade-long family here in Bethany. Karen Wallace passed away, and I won't be at the meetings this weekend because of that. I'll be at the services. But keep the Wallace family in your prayers.
Councilmember Lunchstraw?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a great time when we celebrate America's birthday, and we just want to throw out there to anyone, that this is a great opportunity to pad your volunteer resume. There's always something anybody can do, literally. So if you want to come out there and volunteer and have a great time at the park, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, John Robinson can come out too. Anybody can come out. So it's a great time, and I appreciate all the work staff does to make it a family-friendly, fun event. It's just a fantastic time when the city can get together and celebrate America's birthday. So anytime you want to come out and and volunteer, just come on out and have a great time and bring the families and enjoy the time together. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Larson?
He's committed already,
Good. He needs to be committed.
and we thank you. I want to brag on my family. I have my mother's last brother that's living. She was one of 11, and he and his wife are celebrating 65 years of marriage this coming weekend. And my cousin was telling me, she said, there's just not anything out there to celebrate for 65. And she said people either don't live long enough or they can't put up with each other long enough. So it is a milestone, and I am very proud of my country, aunt and uncle, that have stuck it out for 65 years. And through not all of their joys, but also many trials. They've lost a child, and they have gone through a lot on the farm, as farmers do. And they have had not always a rosy life, and I think that they have been a real pillar and example to all of our family, which that side of the family, I think we're way over 150 now that are still living. So we're excited about that. I want to express my condolences to all of those that were affected by the Orlando shootings. We had some people that were in Orlando at the time and too close for comfort in the situation. And I had a situation where I was with my daughter shortly after that happened. And today's times, I think that when I was growing up, the worst thing I think we did was maybe paint the fences and teepee the trees. And my kids go out and they do active things. They go to Thunder games. They have lots of activities. And I have to say that I fear for all of our children in today's world. And like I expressed to her, that I can't be your mother all the time. You're too old for that now, but I can continue to pray for you. And I ask that we as a city pray for our younger generations as they grow and have a hedge of protection around them. I just think these senseless acts that have happened across our U.S. and outside of our United States by senseless means it's just more than I can comprehend. It's just horrible. I look forward to seeing lots of people at this July 4th. It's always fun. I just hope that the heat index is less than 100. So I don't want to pray for rain, but I would like to pray for a little less
Cloud cover.
heat. So with that, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Herron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing tonight.
All right. Councilmember Shirey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. About the 4th of July, I think everybody should, particularly all the ladies, should get their bonnets out because it's going to be warm and sunny. The men should wear their straw hats, and you should take plenty of suntan lotion so that you don't blister. And come out to our Family Fun Fest and enjoy yourself very much, because it's always a wonderful, wonderful event, and it probably one of the very few in Oklahoma County that is very well received. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Knapp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations, Steve, for becoming a Bethany resident. I just have to say I'm glad to be back in Bethany, back to civilization for that matter, after being in the woods for 7 days with a few hundred Boy Scouts and snakes and scorpions and tarantulas and chiggers and poison ivy, and I can go on, but tough times. I want to encourage everybody to go out next Tuesday and vote, because it is primary election day. So if you can vote, please go out and vote, and happy birthday, America, in advance. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I too wanted to remind everybody the importance of this coming Tuesday and participating in the election process. Get out and vote on Tuesday. I want to wish everybody a safe and happy 4th of July. We definitely will have a fantastic event starting at 10 o'clock with the parade, and then festivities going on throughout the day out at the park, including a wonderful car show that they have there every year, and all sorts of carnival rides and games. It's always a fun event. And then capped off just before 10 with a fantastic fireworks show. So encourage everyone to come out and partake in that. And regardless of what you do, I hope it's a safe and fun time. This Friday and Saturday, definitely an exciting time for the city of Bethany. We have candidates coming into town for our narrowed search for city manager. We'll be showing those folks around town on Friday, and then having a meet and greet with the council and our spouses and city staff as well, department heads. Looking forward to that. I think it'll be a great time. And then on Saturday, interviewing those candidates, and then meeting to hopefully make a decision on where we go from here. So hopefully somebody stands out in this final group here, and we will possibly have us a city manager. Definitely exciting times. And I had forgotten to mention at the last meeting, I wanted to congratulate Lieutenant Patrick Lambakis with our police department. He was selected as Investigator of the Year by the Oklahoma Gang Investigators Association. This is a group of law enforcement officers from across the entire state of Oklahoma, and Lieutenant Lambakis with our police department is known very well throughout the state for his investigation abilities, especially those relating to gang violence. And it's an honor to have him here in Bethany. So congratulations to him and to the Bethany Police Department. That's all I have. Is there any new business to come before the Bethany City Council? Hearing none, if there's no objection, we will adjourn until July 5th, 2016. Without objection, we are adjourned. I'll now open the Bethany Public Works Authority. We have the consent docket, items 1A and B. Do we have a motion for approval of those items?
Motion to approve, please.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Please post your votes. Thank you. Item 2 is consideration and possible approval of an award for water treatment plant quicklime to Mississippi Lime Company. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any questions or discussion? Please post your votes. Thank you. Item 3, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of resolution.
That should be 1414.
I was going to say it didn't get written in.
And that'll be true on the trust, hospital trust and the development authority as well.
Do we have, so we have a discussion, consideration, and possible approval of resolution 1414, adopting the FY 2017 budget for the general fund, miscellaneous other funds, and various trusts, affirming the authority of the city manager to make transfers within the general fund and appropriating funds from the capital improvement fund for specified equipment and projects. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Please post your votes. Thank you. Is there any new business to come before the Bethany Public Works Authority? Hearing none, if there's no objection, we will adjourn until July 5th, 2016. And without objection, I'll declare us adjourned. I'll now open the Bethany Hospital Trust. We have the consent docket items 1A and B. Do we have a motion for approval on those items?
Motion to approve, please.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Please post your votes for the consent docket. Thank you. Item 2 is discussion, consideration, and possible approval of resolution number 1414, adopting the FY 2017 budget for the general fund, miscellaneous other funds, and various trusts, affirming the authority of the city manager to make transfers within the general fund and appropriating funds from the capital improvement fund for specified equipment and projects. Do we have a motion for approval of resolution 1414?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Please post your votes. Thank you. Item 3 is new business. Is there any new business to come before the Bethany Hospital Trust? Hearing none, if there's no objection, we will adjourn until July 5th, 2016. Without objection, we are adjourned. I'll now open the Bethany Development Authority. We have the consent docket items 1A through C. Do we have a motion for approval on those items?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Please post your votes. Thank you. Item 2 of the Bethany Development Authority is discussion, consideration, and possible approval of resolution number 1414, adopting the FY 2017 budget for the general fund, miscellaneous other funds, and various trusts, affirming the authority of the city manager to make transfers within the general fund and appropriating funds from the capital improvement fund for specified equipment and projects. Do we have such a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Please post your votes. Thank you. Is there any new business to come before the Bethany Development Authority? Hearing none, if there's no objection, we will adjourn until July 5th, 2016. Without objection, we are adjourned, and that concludes tonight's business. Thank you.